All right, Colorado State, the Rams, 9-0 to start the season. Nico Medved's got the boys hooping right now, the nation's longest active win streak. Some big wins along the way, including wins over Colorado, over Washington, over Louisiana Tech, who's the top 100 team, but most importantly, a 21-point blowout victory over the Creighton Blue Jays. Now, this weekend, they're taking on St. Mary's, who has had the opposite season of everything I just said. They're 4-5. They were everybody's darling to potentially win the West Coast Conference. They've been horrific compared to expectations to start the year. And I've got Connor Hope with me from Heat Check CBB here, who, for lack of a better word, has been in the mud a little bit with Colorado State on Twitter this week. Connor, do you want to address what's going on with you mentally with the Rams?
I love the Rams, and that's the funny part. When I'm looking at that game, because it's ranked, I ranked Colorado 4 spots behind Creighton. Colorado is behind Creighton in the AP poll. They're behind Creighton in the coaches poll. They're behind Creighton in every single metrics. The only thing they are not behind Creighton is the scoreboard in that neutral site game and the record. When I'm looking at teams and I look at that game and I look at Creighton's shooting percentage in that game compared to every single other game Creighton has played, I came out of that game going, Creighton looked bad. They weren't hitting shots. I'm going to give them opportunities to prove that that's not them. I gave the same opportunity to FAU, and they came back and said, our slow shooting night against Bryant wasn't real. Gave the same benefit of the doubt to Michigan State and St. Mary's for a game, and they came back with a resounding, this is us. Mm-hmm. So I gave the same credit to Creighton. I dropped them in my rankings, but Creighton's looked fantastic offensively since that game. And where I'm at with Colorado State is they're a top 15 to top 20 team when they're fully healthy. Fortunately for St. Mary's, I guess, is that Colorado State is not fully healthy. They're losing 2 of their top 6 rotation pieces, including a starter and their 6th man. And while Colorado State's defense is not great, St. Mary's offense is worse. So I like this Colorado State team. I think once they're fully healthy, as we head into late January, into February, this is a team that's going to compete for a Mountain West title. I'm not quite on the Final Four contender bandwagon, but they're a second weekend contender. I think they could compete for a top 4 seed if they can grind out these wins while they're not fully healthy and, win most of their games against San Diego State, New Mexico, Nevada. But for right now, and this is not against Colorado State, I just still think Creighton's a borderline top 10 team in the country. And I'm not there with Colorado State, but in this game, I think Colorado State rolls.
So that's the one I was going to get to here. After all this, I'm glad we got your full thoughts on Colorado State. I agree with probably 90% of what you said. I was going to just simply ask, but how do you feel about St. Mary's? You expect Colorado State to roll. A lot of what you said, I think, ends up being irrelevant in this game just with where St. Mary's is at, right? Why are they such a mess? Like, why is this team so far from what we thought they would be?
I think some of the pieces that we were expecting to take big leaps forward, Augustus Marciulionis has not looked like what we expected him to look like alongside Aiden Mahaney. Joshua Jefferson has looked better than he did last year, but he's shooting under 10% from 3. And it's not on an insignificant amount of attempts. Mitchell Saxon, you could argue, has taken a step back from where he was last year. Alex Dukas is just about where he was last year, hasn't really taken a step forward. I actually think Aiden Mahaney looks better than he did last year, but he has no help around him. And off the bench, the only one you're really trusting is Mason Forbes. So you have 6 guys on this roster, maybe, that you trust if you can consider Marciulionis a guy you can trust, or Joshua Jefferson, a guy that you can consistently trust offensively. And they don't move the ball. I think it's very clear that while you would like them to go deeper into their bench, maybe to get a spark, Randy Bennett doesn't trust the bench to bring a spark to this offense. So their offense has just looked putrid. And I think that's negatively impacted them on the defensive end as well. They turn the ball over more than they ever have. They don't shoot the ball well. They can get the offensive boards, but like teams can get out ahead of them sometimes. And it's just, they looked really good against New Mexico and just haven't looked good since.
Yeah, that's the baffling part when you look at like the resume, which sorry, St. Mary's fans, but like no one should be looking at your resume. You're like 6 degrees away from even whispering the R word right now. But like they would just make so much more sense to me if they had lost the game to New Mexico. Instead, like they got the season started off really well with a 14-point victory over a team I think is pretty damn good. Now, Jalen House did not play in that game, and that's part of this. But still, like Mashburn and Den are good players, and I'm surprised by that result when you look at what has happened to St. Mary's since. Look, they just don't have enough offensively when Marshallonis and Jefferson combined are 9 for 56 from 3 on the season. Like you said, that is not a small number of attempts anymore. That is one guy who's made 2 threes shooting 8% from 3, and one guy who's made 7 threes on 32 attempts shooting 21. Like that's horrific. And there's a lot of bad shooting teams in the country, but it's almost unprecedented that those guys are in big roles that take shots every single game and cannot make them fall.
St. Mary's has 2 players shooting over 22% from 3.
It's crazy. It makes me feel so bad for Aiden Mahaney, truly, because like at a certain point, like what's the kid got to do? So I do want to go back to Colorado State quickly. Isaiah Stevens, obviously they're without a couple key pieces. Jalen Lake and Josiah Strong are out for this game. That's what we expect. They were out midway through last game, or did they not have them at all against Denver?
Jalen Lake was out before the Washington game.
Okay.
Because he broke his finger, I think, in the Colorado game. He was out for the Washington game, and then Josiah Strong broke his wrist either in the Washington game or I think it was in the Washington game. So
yeah.
The last I heard was Josiah Strong's out for 6 weeks. Jalen Lake, I've heard 6 or 3. Okay. He just had surgery on his finger. Okay. So that'll put Jalen Lake back hopefully by the New Mexico game, and Josiah Strong probably sometime before that mid-January UNLV game.
Okay. Yeah, not insignificant injuries by any means. Like you said, starter and a 6-man, but those were guys that not only did they play big roles, they were giving them really good minutes to start the season. And I'll just say this from my perspective, Isaiah Stevens is one of my favorite players to watch in the country. And I would be a lot more concerned about Colorado State's injury situation if I was not so confident in what Stevens is capable of individually. Like obviously having good players around him helps, but if you haven't paid attention to Isaiah Stevens, which I'm sure a lot of people that maybe tune into this that watch Big Ten basketball on our channel are like, I've only heard of this guy. I haven't watched him much. He's incredible. He has my vote for best point guard in the country. Truly. Like this kid can get you 14 assists in a game. He can hit 4 threes in a game. He can get you 24 points in a game. He can do it defensively. He always gets 2 steals, it seems like, every single game. He doesn't turn the ball over a ton. To me, he's just so in control of everything. And he's been good his whole career, don't get me wrong. It seems like it's a new level this season. Do you agree with me there?
Yeah. And he would get my vote for, you could put him anywhere in the top 3 to 5 point guards in the country. My concern with Colorado is not on the offensive end.
Yeah.
They can score with any team in the country. They've given up 80 or more points in each of their last 3 games, which includes that game against Denver. St. Mary's, again, we've said can't score. My concern for Colorado is the 3 games to start Mountain West play, where they play New Mexico at home, which New Mexico's backcourt scoring the ball sometimes can just be, it can be flamethrowers in that backcourt. And then they have back-to-back road games against Utah State and Boise State, which, again, not elite teams, but when you're on the road without at least one starter, if not a starter and a sixth man, depending on when Lake comes back, those are games that Colorado State right now on KenPom is expected to win by 1 point and 3 points. Like that could easily flip if Boise State, or specifically, I think Utah State, can get going offensively. We'll see how they develop defensively over the next couple of games, but you're looking at a team that gave up 73 to Louisiana Tech, 77 to Wright State, 74 to Boston College. Their 3 games where they've given up under 70 are Northern Colorado, UMKC, and Creighton.
Mm-hmm.
And the Creighton game being the big one because Creighton looks good offensively. But I want to see that defense play better. And I'm hoping that getting confidence against a St. Mary's team that should allow the defense to thrive helps boost them, especially since it's St. Mary's, a non-D1 school, LMU, a non-D1 school to finish out non-con. Like they should roll those 4 games and head into conference play undefeated.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Colorado State. Get through this game, and we got some gifts for you in the next couple of weeks. I like that point. And back to the Creighton game, just one final note. Look, I'm sure I watched that game. Colorado State did make it tough on Trey Alexander to an extent. Trey Alexander was 1 for 16 in that game because of Trey Alexander more than anything Colorado State did. And that's just not going to happen again. So this could be an opportunity for St. Mary's offense to get right as much as it is an opportunity for Colorado State's defense to actually make a statement. And I made you do this with a different team last week. We can do this super quick. What's Colorado State's first loss? I assume we both predict them to win this game at home. They've got the Cupcakes coming up. You mentioned New Mexico on January 2nd. That's 5 games away. What's the first game the Rams lose this season?
I think it's New Mexico.
Okay.
But if it's not New Mexico, I think it's Nevada on the road.
Okay.
It's going to be one of those games. Nevada, they probably have a full roster, which is why I'm not super confident about that Nevada game being a loss, but I think New Mexico can get hot. And when you're missing 2 key players, probably maybe just one, but probably 2 key players at full strength going against some of these players for New Mexico that can just put points on the board when they want to. I don't know if Colorado State can get enough stops in that game to beat New Mexico.
Yeah, there's a lot of Mountain West opponents that are going to be like fun games to watch at minimum. Like I think some of these teams are honestly a little bit behind where we hoped that they would be, but like I've got that Utah State, Boise State back-to-back away games in a 4-day span circled at the beginning of January. But for you sickos out there, though, just know the last team we did this exercise for was Purdue, and they promptly lost to Northwestern the very next day. So right. St. Mary's money line might be some value for you out there. Hey, Connor, this was really fun. That's Connor Hope from Heat Check CBB. My name is Greg Waddell from Sleepers Media. We're here to preview and recap all the big games of college basketball season. Subscribe to Sleepers Media so that you don't miss any of them. We'll be back for the recap this weekend. Have a great weekend, everybody.